Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of Big Apple Hockey. The weekly show is back once again, and it has been quite a road just to get here, just to do this show today. Wouldn't you say, Anthony?
Yeah, it's been it was quite the interesting weekend. A lot of great experiences, and little hectic there getting home thanks to JetBlue. But we're back and we're here and we're ready to bring you guys all the action that's been transpiring.
Yeah, there's been a lot of action on there. I, of course, am your host, Marc Williams. For if you like the reference, marooned on Ceti Alpha Vegas for any of the Star Trek fans that are out there. And of course, joined by the hockey news is Anthony LaRocco.
Yeah, so Marc, that was quite the disaster getting home. We lost out on a July 1st show, but it was out of our control. But I'm glad to be home, and yeah, a lot of action over the last couple of days, and even today, just the last couple of minutes, Tarasenko signing Detroit trading Robbie Fabry, so stuff still going on, but happy to be home and ready to talk hockey with you guys.
Yeah, they were going to be talking a lot of that right now. And of course, everybody, did the A block? There it is. We got the A block coming on right now where there is a bit of a drama in New York Rangers land. And of course, the A block is brought to you by Seat Geek. There's, wait, I'm covering it up right there, but use the promo code Big Apple Hockey for $20 off your first order. But of course, Anthony, going with all the drama that I was talking about before, reports are saying that Jacob Trouba is refusing to report if traded. There's still some facts on this. I'm still trying to learn right now. But apparently, Trouba, who we've documented numerous times, has a 15 team no trade list, but he is very much playing hardball right now. Anthony, share your thoughts on this first.
Well, first I want to clear it up. He never. That's incorrect. He hasn't. His agent. No one has stated that he refuses to report. If he's traded. So that's a little misleading, Mark. What Larry Brooks was saying in that article 2 days ago was that there are teams that are concerned that he wouldn't report because of his wife and her role, how he doesn't want to leave New York. So that's incorrect. It's
Okay.
not good
Well,
journalistic
I
integrity.
have no problem
He didn't.
fixing it.
He did not. He did not. He never said that. The so that's the issue. Teams are just they know he doesn't want to leave, and they're concerned that if he was traded, what he would do. But look, Jacob Trouba, he's doing the best by his family right now. He's got a kid that was just born a couple of months ago. His wife, is a doctor, which Lyra Brooks laid out. Her residency is lasting for another year, which coincides, with the I think Larry Brooks said July of 2025. I think at that point her residency would be finished, and that coincidentally he'd have 1 year left on his contract. Um, I don't I don't think he's doing anything wrong personally. He was given his contract by Jeff Gordon, and he's sticking within his rights. Now, if you want to call him, not providing his no trade list early, I mean, sure, you could say that maybe that's a little bit of him playing games there. But when a player has an NTC, they have to submit their list to their team by July 1st every year. So he didn't have to give it to Chris Drury early,
Mhm.
and he knew by waiting until July 1st to provide it, then that makes it more difficult to trade because now at that point, July 1st, a lot of teams are already planning what they're going to do in free agency, and it would be harder to consummate a trade. So I don't. I get Ranger fans that are kind of had it with Trouba because of his play on the ice and his bloated salary and they could do a lot if he were to move. But again, he's just staying within his rights and doing what he's allowed to do within the CBA and his contract. I'm a father. My wife has a career. So I relate to what he's doing right now. He doesn't want to uproot his family. She can't leave. Literally, she can't leave. She has a residency for another year. She's worked her whole life to get there. And this is different than when they go on a road trip. Presuming her crazy business schedule, right? When the
Mhm.
Rangers are away, I'm sure they have some sort of nanny sitting. But when you're talking like moving and never being home at all, that really complicates things. So I don't blame Chris Drury for not wanting to go. Jeff Gordon gave him that contract, and he's doing within his rights. Um, Now, Chris Drury's hands are tied. Yes, they are. He could have bought him out, but he opted not to, thinking maybe there's a chance he could trade him. But here we are, and I think at this point, unfortunately for Ranger fans, I think he's going to be here for another year, and then kind of go from there. So, I mean, I see a lot of comments about waiving him. Yes, the Rangers can waive him indeed, but they only save like 1.82 million on the salary cap. So, is it really worth it to waive him for that extra 1.82? I don't know. Chris Drury could determine that, but that doesn't really help the Rangers all that much.
Thanks for the clarification on this, Anthony, about him kind of dragging his feet in order to get this done, being like, it's like one of those things where somebody asks you to leave and you're like, I really don't want to go, and you're a little bit slow in doing that. That's great. This is different from the Mika Zibanejad situation, because when we were discussing this and frustrating me, and I was getting a little bit heated about this because players just don't waive a no move clause. He doesn't have one anymore. That's the simple thing. So there's still 17 teams they can go trade him to. And now they got the list. So let's see if he's a Ranger opening night, because this isn't going to end well. And if it's simply put that it's just he's not going to report somewhere, then that's going to create more traction. I wonder where the rumors are going around. And look, and again, I appreciate the correction on this, because when so many different stories are out there in the Twitter sphere, you don't know what to believe. And I'm still trying to go and figure this one out myself. But here's what it comes down to. He's got a 15-team no trade list, unless there is a specific clause in there for him not to be traded. And I've said this to people. They've had a little bit of a laugh about this. So that clause, I don't think exists. You trade him. You get that list and you trade him, if that's going to be the case. Because right now, and look, again, I empathize somebody is doing right by their family. I would do the same. You would do the same. We'd all do it. But he's got a contract. You can't just amend your contract. Because if that happens, basically it's like a Gary Sheffield thing, where he's just gonna go, yeah, I'm not gonna report there, and then he doesn't report there. And if he didn't, it would null and void his contract anyway, and they gave up assets for nothing. We've gone through this a couple times in our group chat. I want to know all the facts, but I can't help but say Jacob Trouba is no longer the captain of the New York Rangers, for starters. It just seems to me like there's a lot of friction that's there. And we've already seen a captain of a team move on this week where there's a lot of friction. We'll get more into that in a little bit. But, it's not. But, again, this is a contract Jeff Gorton signed. And everybody wants to bring this up. Jeff Gorton's the one that did this. And I understand that Trouba's wife, the 1 year of her residency was deferred. I look, the New York Rangers have to make a decision on this sooner or later, Anthony, and it's not going to get pretty. And the fan reaction of this is going to be very, very bad.
I mean, unfortunately, I don't know what else Chris Drury could do. I mean, it from what it seems like that at this point in the offseason that he's not going anywhere, because again, he provided the Rangers with their list on July 1st. I would assume, a lot of the teams on that list because I would imagine he probably made that list strategically and put teams on there that he knows can't trade for him, whether it be cap space, what type, where they are in terms of their trajectory. Like a bad team isn't going to trade for Jacob Trouba right now. So I don't know what Chris Drury could do. I think his hands are tied, and it's an unfortunate thing because listen, I'm sure Jacob Trouba has enough self awareness to know that the Rangers clearly would prefer for him not to be there. But at the same time, he likely needs to be in New York for at least another year. So it really comes down to Chris Drury. Can he be ruthless enough to find a team that's on his trade list that still has a capability to make the deal in terms of cap space or roster space. Again, a lot of these teams by now, already have their roster set. We see it all the time, Mark. Like the free agency and the activity really slows down after the 4th of July. After the 4th of July, the league goes pretty quiet. I mean, there's some exceptions. Matt Tkachuk was traded on July 22nd, like 2 years ago. But for the most part, in another couple of days, the off season is going to come to a standstill till at least September. So, I don't know what else Drury could do at this time. I mean, my guess is that he's going to be on the Rangers this coming year. I don't see him being moved at this point. And this goes back to that tweet that I reported after the Rangers got eliminated with a source that I trust that said Jacob Trouba isn't going anywhere. And I think a lot of that was because of his control that he has, his salary, and it's just the complexity of making a trade like that. So I don't think he's going anywhere. I mean, again, I know there is a second buyout window for teams, but that's only if your player goes to arbitration and if the award is $4 million or more. So I mean, the Rangers have 2 RFAs right now, or 3: Zach Jones, Braden Schneider, and Ryan Lindgren. So I mean, Schneider and Zach Jones clearly aren't getting an award over $4 million. It's possible that Ryan Lindgren could, which would trigger a second buyout window. But who's to say that actually even gets that far? So I don't know if a buyout's even an option anymore for the Rangers either. So my guess is that they are going to have Trouba on the roster, and then Drury will revisit this next offseason. That's my take on it.
Everybody, sorry about that. I had a little bit of a cough. Look, hockey-wise, Anthony, this is where the other problem is. Jacob Trouba's never lived up to this contract. Not in any way. And he's a third-pairing defenseman right now. There are things he contributes to this team. But on the other hand, can you really have your captain be a third-pairing defenseman? I'll maintain this, and this is my opinion. So just reading tea leaves and watching games last year in the playoffs, that as Josh is saying right here, with him on the team and no cap or assets to do anything with, it'll be another wasted year. Well, let's see what it's like next year, because with him on this roster right now, he's not going to accept the demotion to the third pairing. He's not going to accept limited time, and every Ranger fan, God forbid they end up losing Ryan Lindgren out of this, they're all going to look at and turn their ire at Trouba. And opening night, he comes out, he might get booed right now. So, yes, fences have to be mended. We will see about that. I have maintained all along that the Jacob Trouba era needs to end. I'm at a loss for words on this one because I'm still trying to gather in all the facts. So I still, if it's,
I don't understand the booing him part. Like, this isn't a case of a guy like Kirk Muller, when he came to the Islanders and he didn't want to play for the team, and that that fans take offense, because you don't want to play for your team. Okay, go screw off. This guy is not wanting to leave because of his wife and his kid, and I respect that. He's doing what's best for his family, and I think the majority of Ranger fans that say they would boo him if they were in his situation and were doing something for their wife and their kid, they would probably do the same exact thing as Jacob Trouba. So I don't know how you boo a guy for doing what's right by his family. They're hockey players. They're all about team and wanting to win, but they're still a human being. They're still a person, and their first priority is their family. I'm sorry, that's just how it goes.
That's one way of looking at it, Anthony, and that's perfectly fine to look at it this way. Other way to look at it is Game 4, up 2-1 over the Florida Panthers. Who was on the ice grossly out of position? Jacob Trouba. Facing elimination, Game 6. Who was grossly out of position in on the first goal? Jacob Trouba. Fans are tired of this. They're tired of it, and it's those things that you count up and point out. Because here's the other thing I pointed out with this: if he's doing this strictly for his family, admirable way of doing it. Every player that has played a professional sport has tried doing it for their family. It's not just the single guys, all the ones that have been there. There have been plenty of players that didn't want to get traded. Hell, Jackie Robinson got traded to the Giants and he retired because once you're traded, anybody could be traded. Brian Leach has been traded. Wayne Gretzky's been traded twice. Like, look, sometimes you roll with the punches on this. This is the life that you signed up for. And not for nothing, you had 6 years of a no-move clause. Or 5, whatever it is at the moment. I took the opposite position on Mika Zibanejad because he has a no-trade, no-move clause. Let me be very clear about that.
And the big difference here is Mika Zibanejad, most hockey players, their wives are stay-at-home moms because their husbands make millions and millions of dollars, and they'll go anywhere. So when me and Marc were getting into it, and I said you can move Zibanejad, even though he has an NMC, and it's true because his wife's not a doctor with a huge career. So there's a big difference between Trouba and anybody else kind of wanting to stay. The majority of NHL players' wives aren't lawyers and doctors. So there's unfortunately for Ranger fans, Jacob Trouba's wife has aspirations of being a doctor and having a long medical career. And that's just the truth of the matter. And that's what's standing in the way right now. If Jacob Trouba's wife was a stay-at-home mom, I guarantee you Jacob Trouba's probably going to say, okay, I'll leave. I'm assuming. Obviously, I could be wrong, but I would imagine that would be the case.
We're going to be talking in circles on this one again, Anthony, because here's the thing. You can't, if that's going to be the case from here to the end of time, when you sign a player, you have to understand you're signing their wife. We've seen it in other sports like Grimes on the cornerback on the former cornerback of the Miami Dolphins. His wife used to do a podcast. There was Chris Benson's wife, I think it's Anna Benson. She was another one that was an issue for a while. If that's going to be the case, everybody's going to have to take that into account when you're signing a player, which they probably should be doing anyway. Because if you can't move on from a player, then everything is pointing to is he's got a no trade clause, even though he's got a limited no trade clause. Doesn't make any sense to me. So
I don't understand these comments. Don't think people listen. No, I'm not saying. I'm talking about booing him because he's doing the right thing by his family. To me, that's not something you boo. I mean, if you want to boo him because he said disparaging things about your team, sure, that's my point. It has nothing to do with. You're clearly not understanding what I'm saying.
I get what you're saying on that, but again, the fans aren't going to see it like that. The fan backlash is going to be we had a chance to get rid of you. You made this incredibly hard. And by the way, it only gets worse next year. So he's got a 12-team no trade. So it's another time where there's going to be, yeah.
Now this
but again,
too,
that's not for us to say though.
It has nothing to do with the money. Like, are you a dad? I'm sorry, but I am. I don't care how much money I have. I'm not going to move away and literally never see my kid unless I'm coming toward the New York metro area. Sorry, that's so silly to say. Yeah, he could hire a nanny, but I'm sure he wants to see his kid. Not be away from him for six months. Let's just say these comments get me, because let's just say he gets traded to Utah. How often Utah don't come to the Eastern Conference very often. So in that situation, I got news for you. He's not seeing his kid very often. So give me a break with you just hire a nanny. It's
also not for us to say how he should spend his money or hire a nanny. That's not for me to say. It's just when you have situations like this, you have to figure it out. Because you can get, to talk about military kids that move around all the time. And okay, but the thing is, it's the integrity of the CBA, as you're saying right there. Trouba's doing nothing wrong, his responsibilities to his family. But here's the thing. What is actually in there in the CBA? Is he leaking out that he's not going anywhere? Because those reports did not come from nowhere. It's not that nobody made them up. So I want to know some more facts before I could really go off on this. But if he's just trying to play hardball, and yes, possibly with Anthony saying, he probably throws on teams like Florida and Tampa right now and Colorado, who have no cap space anyway to move him. But there's also other teams. There's bound to be one team on there that has some cap space. And if the Rangers are stuck with this, they're going to have to ask themselves this question: is this guy better on my roster than not? And everybody, and look, all of his defenders, all of his detractors, that's the question that's going to be there. And it's going to be there soon enough. And it's coming to a head.
Honestly, I know this is a joke. Clear it wouldn't happen, but in all honesty, he probably would have no problem going to the Rangers or the Islanders, because he doesn't have to. The Islanders or the Devils, because he doesn't have to change anything about his life. But
even Boston would be not that bad for him, but still, the Rangers right now. Chris Drury is left in a bit of a conundrum on this, and he's going to have to make that decision sooner or later, because I have also mentioned this, Anthony. There is we have talked about this. There's a human aspect in it, and you want players coming to your organization to see you're going to do right by them. But on the other hand, you can't just manipulate contract situations like this. We'll see about that one.
No, like I said, and unfortunately, it's a sticky situation for both sides. I'm sure the Rangers would like to do right by him, but that's in this situation, that's hard. That's going to be hard to do. So,
well, the thing is doing right
again,
by him.
Before, teams get a second buyout window if you have a player that goes to arbitration, and the award's more than $4 million. So I don't know what's going to happen with Ryan Lindgren if he were to file for arbitration, and if that were to happen, then yeah, they would get a second buyout window. But that's not a guarantee.
All right, to a bit of a happier topic that's not going to anger everybody on this. Anthony, do you know how many teams Anthony Duclair has played for in his career?
Let's see: the Rangers, the Coyotes, the Blue Jackets, the Senators, the Lightning, and the Sharks. Did I get them all?
I think you missed San Jose. Oh, you got the Sharks at the end. I think you missed the Blackhawks. You missed the Blackhawks. You had the Blue Jackets.
Okay.
And I'm not. I think I heard you say Ottawa, but still.
Yeah, I did say Ottawa.
But the Islanders will be his 9th team, and he's never spent more than 3 years.
I missed Florida too.
You missed Florida? I thought you definitely had that one. All right.
No, I don't think I did.
But the New York Islanders signed Anthony Duclair to a 4-year deal, and Duclair over his career, 146 goals, 157 assists, and 303 points. I don't know why I put points behind the number in front of the number instead of behind it, but whatever. Oh wait, no, I did it with all of them. Never mind. Anthony, your thoughts on the Duclair signing?
I'm not surprised because Watt coached him for a long time, and in Duclair's press, his media conference when he signed, he mentioned how Patrick Watt called him actually and said, I want you, I want you on our team. So, this is a guy that he's fast. He plays the game with a lot of speed, and he's a guy capable of scoring around 25 to 30 goals. So, he's a good guy to provide like secondary scoring. So I have no problems with it. 3.5 million on the AAV, that's not real high. With the 4-year term, he's not old. I think he's 28, 29. So, he certainly helps the Islanders. He's going to play on the top line next to Horvat and Barzal. He's going to be a big upgrade over Anders Lee on that line. We all know Lee doesn't have a lot of foot speed. Duclair does. And he's a skilled player. So I think it's right about the signing you would expect for the Islanders. I don't think anybody obviously expecting them to sign, Stamkos or Gensel. That wasn't happening. But, adding Duclair will help them out. And, again, he's not like this player that's going to, move the needle in a huge way, but he's a 25 goal scorer, and the Islanders need goal scoring, so he should help their top line.
It's unbelievable to think that this guy has been in the league 10 years and he's been on 9 different teams. He's a better player than that. He's always being shopped around. I hope he's able to call Long Island a home for a little bit, because I remember when he was a Rangers prospect coming up, and then he got moved to Arizona, and well, yes, we're going to get to the that also changes where Engvall falls in, because we'll talk more about the improving Islanders offense in the Bar Talk segment. But Anthony Duclair has always been a guy that's gone somewhere and produced. He hasn't broken out anywhere, but I think he's a good addition, especially for the top line. Wait,
I think he absolutely
the top 3 left wing role.
Yeah, I mean, who else is going to play in that top? I mean, I guess you could try Maxim Siplikov, who they just signed from Russia, but I mean, obviously he's unproven in the NHL, and Lee clearly didn't work in that spot. So who else is there? I mean, you're not going to put Cizikas back on there. How they ended the season. So yeah, I personally absolutely think Duclair is going to start on that top line.
It's
Lee. I think Lee's going to go to the second line with Nelson and Palmieri. That's my guess right now.
He might fall all the way to the third line if depending on how Siplikov just
sure, yeah, depending if yeah.
So we're gonna see about that. But I think the way Duclair plays, I think that'll fit in well with Horvat and Barzal. And they tried 8 different wingers on with that team last year, Anthony. They got to find somebody that's gonna at least have some more staying power. With Duclair, you shouldn't need more than, we'll say, 2, barring injury. So that's what I think about that one.
Duclair has the opportunity to raise the game more, because typically in his career, he's never really been a top line guy per se. He's going to get a chance to play with 2 pretty damn good players in Horvat and Barzal. So he's going to get the minutes. I'm sure he's going to get the power play time. So, if everything falls into place, he could have himself a career year. So, but Wah, and on top of that, Wah knows him. He likes him. He's gonna get every single opportunity afforded to him to really make an impact.
He had a career high 31 goals with Florida in 21-22, and 24 goals last season, 16 with San Jose and 8 with Tampa. Could be a really good value signing for the New York Islanders. We'll see about that one. We're gonna do one more topic before we go to break, Anthony, because the other bombshell that was kind of thrown on everybody.
That's true.
Yeah, and I was actually just double checking this one right now. Wicked. One thing about it was he might have been on very bad teams. He didn't get a lot of minutes on those very bad teams. Ottawa, he got 16 minutes and 16 seconds in the 1920 season. But then he started averaging 15 minutes, 14.51 per night with some of the other teams he's been on. You know, it's funny. You might want to blame him for the early part of his career, but he really wasn't given a chance to play big minutes. So, Anthony, one more topic that was thrown upon us on July 1st, and it's this one. The NHL reinstates Stan Bowman, Joel Quenneville, and Al McIsaac after their roles in the Blackhawks scandal that they were suspended for just a little bit under 3 years ago. Anthony, this is a difficult one because I don't know what the suspension should have been, and I don't know if they should be reinstated at the same time. Let me hear what you think.
I mean, well, they've been suspended for quite some time now, so I don't recall exactly how long. What?
A little under 3 years.
Yeah, okay. I mean that's a long time for guys who were involved in hockey their whole careers. You know, and again, without getting too much into it, because that was a very messy situation. I am a believer that people deserve second chances in life, and Bowman and Quenneville. And I'm not making excuses, but they weren't the ones doing the horrible act. Obviously, they just unfortunately had the bad judgment to turn a blind eye to it just because they were focused on trying to win a Stanley Cup. You know, I'm sure they both regret that. What they likely should have done is literally legit taken it seriously and report it right away. I think that's what most people would do, but for whatever reason, they did not. So, given that, I mean, I don't think they deserve to be suspended for the rest of their careers. So, yeah, I mean, they have another chance, and hopefully they learn their lesson. So, that's just my take on it.
I have a lot of trouble with this. And the way that I was angrily talking about it years ago when we first reported this was that it was above your pay grade. And that they went out and they recommended this guy to another I'm trying to remember what it was, to another organization. I think it was a high school. And he ended up doing it again. And people's lives are ruined by this. Is it fair? I mean, I have no idea what the punishment should be on this. I almost didn't agree with the punishment, and I also don't agree with the reinstatement because I still have no idea what to do. We got people whose lives are ruined. I also don't want to see somebody also have their life ruined because they hesitated a little bit on it. But on the other hand, they dragged their feet, Anthony. They didn't. None of them did the right thing. And if my kid is going to any organization that they're in charge of, I don't know if I can trust them. So that'd be one thing about that. I do wonder what's gonna happen with Joel Quenneville. This guy is, and Matt, as Matt's saying right here, thing is, if nothing happened to other players in terms of suspensions, then these guys like Quenneville and Bowman get a second chance, even though they really did screw up.
I think.
Yeah. Go ahead, Ian.
I think they're eligible. They're eligible for employment again on July 10th. I think that's what I read. That's when they're allowed to officially be hired into roles. Don't be surprised if the Oilers hire Stan Bowman as the general manager, and don't be surprised if the Blue Jackets hire Joe Quenneville as head coach. Just saying that right now. It's just fitting. There's two opening positions in each of those roles, and they're coincidentally going to be ready to go in a week's time. So we'll see what happens. But yeah, again, I agree with Matt. I mean, I think they should get a second chance. I mean, what they did was wrong. No matter what time of year it was, Stanley Cup Final, first game of the season, they should have taken it seriously and reported it and done something about it. And I think they deserve another shot.
I don't know. That's the thing. This entire situation. This is why I don't fault the league on it. I don't. And look, it's just here's the other thing too. You have to think about, and Where for Life brought this up. You're going to have a bit of a PR nightmare, but it's going to be at first, and then it'll subside, especially with the hockey culture. The kid spit on a candy and gave it. Oh yeah,
he's referring to Mitchell Miller.
Yeah. That's going to haunt that kid forever. And it wasn't spit. It wasn't spit. He, according to reports, he put a lollipop in a urinal. So
yes.
Look, this is going to be, I think in American markets, maybe like Columbus, you can actually get away with this because this is one of those things that he's gonna that you could hire him, he'll have the initial press conference, and then he goes away for 2 months. So that's why that actually might happen. I would have agreed with you about that a year ago. I have all faith in Peter Laviolette. The man's done almost as much as Joel Quenneville has. He's only 2 Stanley Cups behind him, and that's because he never really had anything. All right, guys, we're going to take a quick break right here, and we're also going to go and do a quick DraftKings message. We're going to go over free agency, the winners and the losers. Hockey fans light the lamp this winter with DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NHL. New customers can bet just $5 pregame money line on any NHL team to win their game and get $150 in free bets if they do. If that wasn't enough excitement, you can turn small bets into bigger payouts with same-game parlays. Combine multiple bets like which team will win, how many goals will be scored, and more for your shot at an even bigger payout. Download the DraftKings Sports app now. Use promo code THPN. Bet $5 on any NHL team to win their game and get $150 in free bets if they do. Only at the DraftKings Sportsbook with code THPN. All right, now of course we missed our free agency special because of wonderful the air traffic control. It's I understand the weather was probably the problem. I still haven't gotten an exact answer on what happened, but I'm told that there was no chance of me getting back to New York on July 1st. So Anthony, free agency came and went on Monday. Let's start with who are some of your winners?
I mean, come on, isn't it obvious?
It's obvious,
the Nashville Predators. Yeah. I mean, Marchessault, Stamkos, Brady Shea. I mean, I think they overpaid Brady Shea by a little bit, but the three of them just alone, I think they did a fantastic job. No doubt about it. The Predators have always been known as a team that, ever since they really came into the league, that they've always lacked like star power and real like bona fide offensive players. I mean, yeah, they had Paul Kariya for a song for a little bit, and Philip Forsberg right now is a great player, but they've never been known as a team that has high end offensive skill. And now they just added, Marchessault coming off a 42 goal season and Stamkos, first ballot future Hall of Famer at 40. So I really love what Barry Trotz did, and adding Brady Shea, a smooth skating defenseman that can move the puck up the ice. I mean, I think it's the Predators by a country mile. Aside from Nashville, it's really tough to say. No one really kind of jumps out at the page right off the bat. I mean, I guess you could say, Tampa Bay added Jake Gensel, who obviously is one of the the best players available, but they also lost Stamkos. So it's like, so I don't know if I could say them either. I do like what the Devils did. You know, Brett Pesce and Brendan Dillon are certainly going to be good for their defense. Jacob Markstrom, they got a starting goaltender. Stefan Noesen, who they added from Carolina. Actually, so the more I talk about this, yeah, I'm going to put the Devils. I thought the Devils did a good job in free agency. And then if I want to try to come up with one more, I have to say Boston. You know, Boston added Nikita Zadorov and Elias Lindholm. And they needed Lindholm badly. We all know how long they needed a center for. So they added that. They finally got their guy. You know, after they lost Bergeron and Krejci, I feel like they didn't replace them sufficiently. And now they added a really really solid center in Elias Lindholm, and Nikita Zadorov was one of the most sought after defensemen on the market. So I'm gonna say the Bruins, the Devils, and the Predators are the winners.
Yeah, I mean, I like what the Devils did, but then again, the Devils, they've been kind of winning some off seasons for a little bit. By the way, Greg, thanks for the super chat. We'll get to that at the end of this segment. You kind of had the already in Nashville. Just wow, what a great job! Florida maintaining their core, but it's almost going to be at what cost? I have no idea what Pittsburgh's doing. I like what Seattle's done, but so we'll get to them right now.
Yeah.
Brandon Montour, Chandler Stevenson. Oh, what do you got, Anthony?
Yeah. No, I was
Yeah.
saying that. Yeah, I agree. Montour and Stevenson. Yeah.
Sorry, I was checking my notes for a second. But
Boston.
Zadorov going with Boston. Yeah, that's a good one.
Yeah.
But Seattle, here's the thing about Seattle. Just I wonder if Dan Bosma is really going to be the coach that's going to take him anywhere. We're going to see about that. And you like the makeup of that team added with Stevenson, and although his AAV was a little bit higher than you thought it was going to be, but so looking over with them, and I think Tampa moved laterally. Anthony, go on. What do you think about the Caps?
The Caps is tricky. NYR for life. Yes, they did add, in name, Dubois, Mangiapane, Chikrin. Chikrin's actually a really good ad. My issue with the Capital is always, PLD. Marc, we all know how you feel about PLD. I'm not going to get you started there.
Yeah.
But last year he only had 40. He only had like 40 points, and the guy makes $8.5 million a year. So depends if they get the PLD that scored 40 points, and if they get the Mangiapane who hasn't come anywhere close since he had that 34 goal a year, then then honestly it's kind of more of the same. If PLD could get back to 60, 70 points, and Mangiapane can score close to 30 goals, then yeah, that would be a significant improvement. Just depends which two versions of them that they get.
I like that Washington at least beefed up their roster. I still look at Washington and think that they're on the back nine, as far as like relevancy goes. But you gotta love the job that Spencer Carberry did. But I mean, I don't know about them being Chicago having a brilliant July 1st. Because you look at some of the guys that Chicago had. Let's see, it's that they brought in.
I mean, they
brought in Mikheyev, Teravainen, Maroon, Martinez. How much longer does he have? Because after all, Anthony thought he was going to retire, and TJ Brody. Yeah, they've upgraded their talent. I wouldn't exactly say brilliant.
Yeah, I get what State's saying. They added a lot of veterans. I mean, like Marc, you mentioned Maroon, also Craig Smith. They added Craig Smith. I think they added Laurent Brossoit in goal. So they added a lot of veterans, but outside of Teravainen, none of the guys they really added are guys that are going to move the needle. I mean, Pat Maroon at this point in his career, he's a fourth liner. I mean, Craig Smith played on Dallas's fourth line. In Chicago, he could probably play a little bit higher up, but his game fell off a little bit. Tyler Bertuzzi, though, and David actually just reminded me, I totally forgot, that one's a good addition too. So yeah, I mean, between Bertuzzi and Teravainen, they certainly added some skill, and you certainly need veterans to go with Bedard and insulate him a little bit. So Craig Smith and Pat Maroon will help in that regard. So there's no doubt Chicago got better. I don't know if they are a playoff team, but they certainly got better.
Actually, we didn't have Tyler Bertuzzi on our list that we have for our free agent tracker. So thanks for also mentioning that, guys. All right, Anthony, what are some of the losers you got?
Yeah, that's what I was just gonna say. I mean, I think Vegas, right? It's not often you say that about Vegas. Usually they're acquiring every huge name. But in Vegas, you had Marchessault, Stevenson, Amadio, Mantha, Carrier, Alec Martinez all walk out the door. And incoming, you have Alexander Holtz, and Victor Olofsson, Ilya Samsonov. So, I mean, Vegas, yeah. Vegas, I would say, had a bad day on day one of free agency. I mean, that's between Marchessault and Stevenson. Those are legit top 6 players that they lost. And I mean, you really don't know what you're going to get. I mean, if you get the Holtz that was drafted with all that high potential, and Victor Olofsson can go back to scoring nearly 30 goals, then maybe it might work for Vegas. But I certainly think Vegas was a loser. And then Carolina. Someone mentioned Carolina in the chat already. But yeah, I mean, they kind of took it on the chin too. I mean, you lost Teravainen, you lost Gensel, you lost Pesci, you lost Shea. Am I forgetting anybody else, Mark? I mean,
let me go back to those notes.
They retained Martinook, and then I mean, they added Sean Walker,
Stefan Nason.
They lost him. And Sean Walker's a good defenseman. Gostisbehere is a good offensive defenseman. Not really great in his own end.
That's
and then they added William. They added the aforementioned William Carrier from Vegas. He's a good hard-nosed player in the bottom 6. But yeah, overall though, I think they lost a little too much and didn't bring enough back in. So yeah, off the top of my head, I gotta say Carolina. I gotta say Vegas. Buffalo. I mean, for a team that's trying to get back into the playoffs, I mean, what did Buffalo do? They added Lafferty, right? Sam Lafferty. They didn't really add anybody else. Let me take a look at the top of my head.
Jason Zucker,
Nicholas Kubel, James Reimer. I mean, Buffalo didn't do nearly as much for a team that's trying to get into the playoffs.
I mean, and of course, look, we're going to rip the Rangers. Everybody's going to rip the Rangers. They got Sam Carrick. Well, they're also having problems because they try to figure out how to re-sign their players and also cap problems too. When you look at some of the teams that are out there, not that there were really many goaltending options that were available for free agency, but Toronto and Carolina still haven't fixed their goaltending issues. It's going to be the same things next year. Toronto's going to be better defensively because Berube is going to be there. We all know this. But I don't see it really happening all too well.
Yeah, Toronto. I mean, Toronto. They didn't really. They added Anthony Stolarz in goal. They added OEL. OEL was solid.
And Chris Tanev.
But Toronto didn't really do too much either. I feel like they're in the same boat.
It's sticky, but it's also like this is the reason why you don't want to get too excited about July 1st going, yeah, all right, let's get all rah. Because who had the best July last year? We would have said the Devils. You would have been like the Devils had the best offseason. They didn't even get a whiff of the playoffs. So it's a matter of can they address all the issues? And look, I think so far the offseason is pointing towards the Devils being a playoff team again. But that's why you play the games. And look, I think everybody's neglecting the Islanders of being an improved team right now because of what Patrick Waugh has been able to do, and also
Well, I mean,
the changes in the lineup.
The Islanders are an improved team just because they didn't lose anybody of consequence, and you added a guy in Duclair who could score 25 to 30 goals. So that's an improvement. And then that's not considering they added Maxim Siplikov. I mean, and if Siplikov can come in and have a Andrei Kuzmenko type of, impact that he had with Vancouver his rookie year, then that's even better. So, yeah, I mean, the Islanders didn't lose anyone, and they added Duclair and another talented player from the KHL. So, the Islanders are improved. I mean, not vastly improved, but they're improved.
Anthony, before we even move on to Bar Talk, we got to go to the big story of the free agency season, which was Tampa Bay basically telling Steven Stamkos to go kick rocks. Second time I used that expression in the show, but reports are that they didn't give him a flattering contract offer at the end, and he ends up going to Nashville. This was a guy that did this is almost like the reverse of the John Tavares situation, if you want to say it like that, where he did everything in his power to try to get Tampa Bay to sign him. I don't think Julien Brisebois had any interest in re-signing Steven Stamkos.
I mean, it seems like that's correct. I mean, it was last summer that Stamkos kind of expressed a little bit of disappointment that he didn't get anything done with the Lightning. And you kind of thought when that happened that, something was up. And then as the season went on, and obviously to avoid distraction, he wasn't going to talk about it. And then the season ended and it got closer and closer. You started to really feel like, wow, he really could leave. And, Marc, when we were at the draft, well, this was day 2. You weren't there inside, but when they announced on the draft floor that Tampa Bay had made that shocking trade, moving Sergachev, and then shortly after moving Jeannot, clearing out all that cap space, everyone was like, "Oh wow, it looks like they finally got it right with Stamkos, and they're going to do right by him, and they're going to make an effort to re-sign him." And then shortly after, Elliot Friedman was like, none of this was for Stamkos. I believe it's to make room for Gensel. And at that point, it was like, wow, they legitimately are trying to move on from him. And, sure enough, he's now a National Predator. So, unfortunate for him because this is a guy that could have went by the way of Steve Yzerman, play for one team your whole career and win cups and go down as one of the best Lightning players of all time, and he still very well might. But it's just a shame he wasn't able to finish his career in Tampa, especially when he wanted to.
It's almost tragic because and again, it seemed like with all the extensions that were going on, that Brisebois just said, "Look, if I'm going to lose anybody, I'm losing Stamkos." Now that being said, he also ended up losing Sergachev out of this in that trade. And I know JJ Mosier is a good player because Arizona looked like he was doing pretty good with them. You wonder what's going to change tactically for them. And I say this because Stamkos has been that one-time option for them for so many years. Are they losing a big piece of their team? They're not even realizing it. I don't know what to make of it yet.
I mean, like I just said, they might have just lost the best player to ever play for their franchise. It's just unfortunate he doesn't have that legacy to finish out his career playing for just one team. But I get that he's getting older, but I mean, he scored 40 goals last year. It's not exactly like he scored 20 goals last season, and they could see, okay, well, he's clearly declining. I mean, when you score 40 goals, you're still playing some high-end hockey. So I guess it's just a matter of they felt concerned by giving him 4 years is maybe too much. But I don't know. I think they should have re-signed him. But I mean, at the end of the day, they still got Jake Gensel, who's a really good player that's capable of scoring 40 goals himself. So the Lightning are still going to be. I mean, let's face it, they're still going to probably be a top. No, Maybe not, because I mean last year they kind of struggled to
Just
try
do
to get that
just
top
do
3
the three
spot
in the
in the
Atlantic.
Atlantic.
Are they top 3 in the Atlantic?
Well, I mean you got to give Florida just because of the Cup champs. Yeah, I mean they did lose a lot of depth with OEL, Stenland, Tarasenko, Montour. They did lose a lot of pieces, but I would say they're still top 3. I mean, the Leafs, again, are likely going to be top 3 just because of the firepower they have. And then, Boston got better. Lindholm's going to help. Zadorov's going to help. Uh, so I don't know. It's really too hard to say, but it's toss up, really, I think.
Well, it's going to be interesting to see what John Cooper is going to do with them. All right, everybody, it's time. Let's do a little bit of our talk.
Shot. This is the easiest I've ever had to answer.
I'm going to say beer. I can't even begin to describe.
I'm actually going to go crazy. I'm going to buy everybody around on this one. And welcome back to Big Apple Hockey's Bar Talk, everybody, where we're gauging our confidence on NHL topics based on our choice to drink. So confident that you're buying around. So I'll have a beer and, oh, God, I need a shot on this one. Put your answers down in the comments below and play along. And, of course, always, we have Big Apple Hockey trucker hats and shirts. My hat is not on me right now, and my shirt, I'm currently wearing an Archer shirt. So that's a little bit of a difference. Anthony, we'll talk about one player that was rumored to be on the move this week, but not. There were reports that the Rangers were shopping Kaapo Kakko at the draft. Kaapo Kakko will be on the Rangers opening night roster.
I'm gonna go round. I think he will be. I mean, the contract he signed certainly didn't, stop him from being traded. I mean, if anything, at least added a little bit of value, being that teams know he was signed now. But at this point in the offseason, like I said, after really the 4th of July tomorrow, I mean, things are really going to slow down. There's not much that happens. I mean, yeah, trades could always happen at any time, but typically you all know it really the off season becomes really stale and slow for the month of July and into August. So I feel like if he was going to be traded, it would have happened already. So I'm going to say round.
I'm only going to go beer. I'm tempted to go round on this one, Anthony, because I want to actually say that there is that chance. I'm just not 100% sure. I think Kakko wants this to be over. I think the Rangers want this to be over, but I just don't see it happening right away yet. And yeah, you're right, because usually everything's going to dry up after this weekend. Guys want to go to their cottages. Our friend Jim Behringer was talking about that at the draft. I mean, hell, he does it. So, but I think it's just as far as Kakko goes, there's always that, hey, we haven't tapped into his potential thing. You hear guys saying, and as Josh is saying right here, Drury doesn't like the value he's getting back for Kakko. Problem is, I think that he's overvaluing him. Yeah, probably, but I don't know. Hey, Anthony, if I told you that the Islanders the last 3 seasons scored 716 goals, where do you think they rank over the last 3 years in the NHL?
Like 22.
They were ranked 25th over the last 3 years, and actually they improved on the Patrick Waugh, 113 goals. They got to 20th. Now they have a bunch of different additions that they have right now. Can they actually sneak? The Islanders will sneak into the top half of scoring this season.
So last year they were 22nd in goals for. They had 245 goals. The Winnipeg Jets were 15th and had 259. So that's 14 goals difference to get up that high. Now, granted, again, I mentioned before they added Anthony Duclair, who's capable of scoring 25 to 30, and they added Maxim Siplikov, which again, you don't know, what type of impact is he going to be more like Andrei Kuzmenko and have 70 points, or is he going to be like Vladimir Shipachyov, who came in with the Golden Knights. There was a high-end KHL player and didn't do much. You don't know.
Or Nikita Kucherov, who was with the Devils this weekend.
Yeah, but they did add Duclair, who could score could score a decent amount of goals. So I think they'll be a little better, but it's too hard to predict because other teams got people too. So I can't sit there and say, because they added Duclair, it's 30 more goals. They're going to make up that difference. So I'll simply just say beer. They could, or they could not. It really all depends.
I actually have a little bit more faith. I think they're going to be a better goal scoring team this year. But the best I could do is beer on this because they have to jump up four slots under Patrick Waugh. Now, was that just some goal scoring boost that they got towards the end of the season, or is that who they really are? We'll find out about that soon enough. I do like the pieces the Islanders have in place in their top 6. I wonder what they're getting out of Siplikov. That's going to be the X factor that's right there. And it's hard to say sometimes what you get a guy that comes in from the KHL. He could either light it up or he could just be, So we'll see about that. Anthony, the New Jersey Devils, obviously big signings this week with Brett Pesce, Brendan Dillon, Stefan Nason, and Thomas Tatar coming back. Although Thomas Tatar, not a big season last year. Those are numbers that weren't replicated from a couple years ago in New Jersey. And the Devils also traded for Jacob Markstrom. Carolina, we talked about them in the last segment. No Brady Shea, no Teuvo Teravainen, no Brett Pesce, no Nason, and no Getzel. The Devils have jumped over Carolina in the Metropolitan Division.
Oof, that's a tough one. Carolina still has their main guys in place. Aho, Svechnikov, Jarvis, Slavin. But you know what? If Jack Hughes stays healthy, because he was banged up a decent amount last year. If Hughes stays healthy and Timo Meier can kind of find his game, combine that with Dawson Mercer and a lot of these other pieces that they have, Nico Hischier, what they added this year, I'm inclined. I don't want to say round because that's kind of like guaranteeing it, but I'll go beer with the caveat of saying I actually lean towards the Devils being a little bit better than the Hurricanes.
We talk about guys that I kind of have no love for before. Yeah, we're saying on paper New Jersey is better, but that means Markstrom's got to go to a new team and produce just as well. Jake Allen has to still put up good numbers. The other thing is Sheldon Keefe has got to be a better coach than I don't know about that one yet, Everest. Sheldon Keefe has got to be a better coach than Rod Brindamore. I'm not convinced about that one. I'm gonna go shot on this. The old Dennis Green line about if you want to crown them, to crown their ass, go right ahead. But I'm not convinced on the Devils just yet. But then again, talk to me if Luke Hughes takes a jump, Simone Nemec takes another jump, and also if Dougie Hamilton can be healthy. That's another factor as well. He went down and the Devils season completely changed. The Devils had problems with injuries. That's another thing that might get them. So we'll see about that soon enough. Anthony, we talked about the Toronto Maple Leafs not improving their goaltending situation, but let's go look at the goalie that's on their roster right now. Joseph Woll played a career-high 25 games this year. The Maple Leafs, Joseph Woll was ready to be a starter.
It was a small sample size last year, but he did look good. But the fact that the Maple Leafs were in the market for Markstrom, I think just shows you how the Leafs aren't ready to fully hand the reins over to Woll. Unfortunately, now though, at this point in the offseason, Saros stayed, Markstrom got traded. It looks like Gibson's not going anywhere. Their options for goal are pretty much non-existent at this point. So unless something shocking happens, he is going to be their guy. But again, if you just go by the small sample size last year, you would say, yeah. But I'm not convinced of it. So I'll say beer, but I think they possibly could be in trouble because if he falters, you have Stolarz and Matt Murray as the guys that you have behind him, which don't exactly, give me the warm and fuzzies. So for the Leafs fans' sake, I hope Wall is legitimate, because if he's not, they may have some trouble.
I just want to look up how many games Matt Murray played. He's played 26 games with Toronto since they acquired him, and none last season. Right now, they put up that post, and you showed me that post on the plane, Anthony. I was like, you're really celebrating this right now? Like, they're like, Matt Murray's coming back, and what? I don't know what they're getting from him. He's certainly, I wouldn't say Matt Murray's an NHL starter. I'm going to go beer at this one because they've been talking about him for a while. Let's see what the kid can do. And if that's the case, because there really isn't much out there now. They had the merry-go-round musical chairs, I should say, of goaltenders, and they're the ones that were left without a seat. So in Carolina Hurricanes, you can argue that as well, but they got 3 of them under contract also. He's looked good at times. I mean, Wall had I think it was a 2.94 goals against average. It's last year. It's just one of those things. It's time. You can't let him just sit around. Play him. See what you're going to have.
I think Askarov. I think Askarov is going to get traded at some point. I mean, this guy, he just saw UC Saros re-sign for 8 years, and I highly doubt he's going to be okay with being a backup for that long. He came over from the KHL to, play in the National Hockey League and be a starting goaltender. So at some point, I think the Predators will move him. I just don't know when it's going to be, but he could be an option.
It's funny you say that because UC Saros signed a 4-year extension, and Scott Wedgwood was also signed this week by the Nashville Predators. Because Yaroslav Askarov will be a Predator in the Predator system by Thanksgiving.
I'm gonna say shot. I think come training camp, when all 3 of those goalies are in camp, I think they're going to see that, having all 3 of them there isn't really going to, like, Askarov's not going to want to sit and ride the buses of the AHL anymore. And, Scott Wedgwood has really been a formidable backup in the NHL the last couple of years. So I don't think he would really want to be there either. And they just signed him. So for me, Askarov is the odd man out. So I think maybe at some point before camp breaks, before the season starts, I think they'll be bound the team that has a goalie injury or realizes after watching their teams in exhibition and training camp, we need an upgrade and make a trade. So I will say shot right after training camp, he's dealt.
Yeah, I'm just going to pull that down, put it right back up over your face, and just say, this one's kind of been a long time coming because they were trying to figure out who was going to be the goalie there. Was it going to be Saros or was it going to be Askarov? And it looked like since Barry Trotz got there, he's been dangling around Askarov. Now, everybody's been kind of, maybe this is the guy that everybody's been kind of talking about trading for or maybe waiting on. Because if you get him and he's as good as advertised, you got a great goalie for a long time, and you're going to get him on an ELC for the starters. Actually, I think he's got 1 more year. I got to check that. Anthony, they got to move him. They got to move him, and it's going to be quick because nobody's going to be happy in that situation. That I can guarantee you. Certainly not Askarov. He probably is. He was a 2020 draft pick. That I had it right here, and yeah, he's kind of played all the minor league that he ever can. So he's done. Yeah. 2020 NHL entry draft. So we're going to move on from there. But guys, that was a quick bar talk for us today. We didn't exactly have many topics to go over. Let's get to some of your comments right now. Why, Anthony, I couldn't help but laugh about that one where it was, yeah. So Askarov is going to ask off. I like that one. Go ahead.
Yeah, at the draft, Shovel Dayoff said that he's not going to be at their development camp. No surprise there. I think he'll be traded. To who? I mean, I've heard the Canadians being linked to him. I heard the Islanders. I've heard the Rangers. I've heard a whole slew of teams. So it's really hard to pinpoint where he's going to go. But I mean, this guy was one of Michigan's top players. I think he has a really good future in the NHL. Depends on what Winnipeg's asking for. You know, if Winnipeg is asking for a NHL caliber talent, I don't know about teams giving up a young guy off a roster for a guy who hasn't played an NHL game yet. But then again, you know, you saw with the Ducks Flyers trade. I mean, Jamie Drysdale was an NHL player, and they traded from Cutter Gauthier. So you could see a deal. You could see a deal like that, where a young NHL player gets moved for him. But I certainly think he's going to be traded at some point soon. I just don't know where.
Anthony, I just got to go with this comment that's over here. Empire State Construction, of course. It's amazing what basketball players make compared to hockey guys salary-wise. Yeah, to put this in perspective, LeBron James is going to make $104 million over the next 2 years. The Devils' salary cap, and as well as everybody else's, is just a little under $84 million. That's hard to believe on that one. Do you guys think that Drury will intentionally make Lindgren go to arbitration to consider a potential Trouba buyout? Anthony, I'll let you field that one first.
Yeah, I mentioned that before. You know, teams get a second buyout window if a player goes to arbitration. The only thing I don't know what the rule is for sure. I gotta look it up. I don't know if the second buyout window gets triggered if the player was previously making $4 million or more, or if the award on the new contract is $4 million or more, because that would affect how things go here. Because wasn't Lindgren only making $3 million this past season?
Lindgren was making, I think it was $4 million actually.
If it was, yeah. But either way, I don't know what the rule is there. But it is certainly possible that, if he goes to arbitration, he could get a second buyout window. So that is possible.
$3 million, by the way. That's where that is on that one.
So $3 million. Okay. Yeah, I know there's something to do with the number 4. I just didn't know if it was the award of the player arbitration has to be 4, or they had to have been making 4. That I know for sure. I just don't know which one it is.
If it's a situation where, see, this is something, be careful what you wish for. If you're going to ask him to go to arbitration, you might see a worse contract, or the potential of him just being awarded a 1-year contract and then you lose him next year. I mean, that's kind of playing with fire, but you also can see that happening, Anthony. You can see that happening. Josh is asking right here if Igor wants his camp, or his camp says 10 million plus. I say trade him. What do you think?
I mean, the cap is going to keep going up in the future, so it wouldn't, him getting 10, it wouldn't be the worst thing. But as Philk always says, paying a goalie $10 million plus isn't really the best idea. But I mean, Igor is an elite goalie. He's one of the best. I mean, his last 2 regular seasons obviously have been, the save percentage has been nowhere near what it was for his Vezina winning season. But in the playoffs, he performs. He plays really well. So his agent could hang on that. But I don't know. I mean, you guys always say you don't want to pay Igor, $10 or $11 million. So we'll see what happens. But it'll be interesting to see, what his contract is. Is it comparable to Saros? Is it comparable to Sorokin's? Or is it more along the lines of Bobrovsky? We don't know.
Save percentage 913 last year. Obviously, it's very hard to duplicate over 930 save percentage. Shesterkin, actually, he
Hot take.
hot take. All right, trading Igor would be the smartest thing the Rangers could do. That's a bit of a hot take, but I can understand why you're saying that. The question is, what would a Shesterkin deal look like? What assets could they get back right away? And yes, it could be one of the smartest things they could do, because after all, as we've documented many times, that the Stanley Cup was awarded to the Vegas Golden Knights with Adin Hill. The Colorado Avalanche with Darcy Kemper, even though I think he was a better goalie than what people kind of talk about him like. But hell, Corey Crawford, there was another one. Can we trade him for Draisaitl? Probably not, because Edmonton was able to get all the way to the Stanley Cup Finals with Stuart Skinner. And now, by the way,
and as good as
they got Skinner squared in Edmonton.
Yeah, as good as Igor is, goalies typically don't have the value of a forward of Draisaitl's caliber does. So, I mean, yeah, just to kind of like straight across, you would say, oh yeah, that seems fair. But in reality, his goalies never really return something of that much value that Draisaitl has. But it is an interesting theory to speak about.
I'm looking up the last trade that was kind of like that everybody talks about. Here we go. Todd Bertuzzi traded by the Vancouver Canucks with Brian Allen and Alex Auld to the Florida Panthers for the 6th-round draft pick, which ended up being nobody. Lucas Krejcik and, of course, Roberto Luongo. That one, Vancouver won, but not all the time that happens. Usually, when you trade the best player in a deal like that, you end up being you end up losing out on the deal. Ask Montreal if they want a mulligan for the Patrick Waugh deal. And by the way, State of Survival saying I forgot Bertuzzi played for Florida. That is 100%. Tommy, the question is with Igor, is it just going to be 9.5 million, or we're going to look at potential? Look, I think I could go to 10 million. I could reluctantly do that. You can't go to 11. You can't go to 12. As Empire is saying, as an Islander fan, I agree. Igor, take your best friend Sorokin's deal, but you know what? That ain't gonna happen. That ain't gonna happen. He's gonna ask for a lot more. And yeah, as NXY XR, I totally messed up everything on there. I know it's NYR with the X's in the middle, but still. I heard Shesterkin's gonna ask for 12 million per season. If so, trade him. Yeah. And because that's what it comes down to.
Yeah, you can't
shed yourself.
You can't pay him 12 million. Absolutely not.
Nope, absolutely not. And if reports are out there, worry about that. I will go to you, Mr. Press Credential Draft Floor Guy. What do you think about the Rangers and Islanders drafts?
I mean, starting with the Islanders, I thought they had a really good draft. I think it was like we were talking about. I don't know if it was Promin or Wheeler, but they had the Islanders and the winners. They really helped replenish their system with this draft. They got a lot of good pieces. I mean, Cole Eiserman dropping to them at 20 was huge. I mean, this is a guy that filled the net last year in the NCAA. He's got a hell of a shot. He's just got a knack for scoring goals. And, when he fell to the Islanders there, that was a no-brainer. And then the Finnish kid they drafted in the 2nd round, in some mocks, he was a 1st-round pick. So I thought the Islanders did a really good job in the draft. And, as for the Rangers, I like the Emery pick. I think he has potential to be a pretty good player. And Droy didn't have a lot of picks though, too. So he did the best he could what was afforded to him. But overall, I thought they both had solid drafts. But the Islanders, for them, it was really necessary to kind of restock the system, and I thought they did that.
I think Cole Eiserman is a steal. I've been kind of watching him the last couple years, and which I'm not really a prospect guy. I don't follow prospects all that closely, but I think Yzerman falling to the Islanders is going to be something that the Rangers are going to regret for years. Not that they had anything to do with it. Obviously, it wasn't like when Noah Dobson fell to the Islanders and the Rangers took Vitaly Kravtsov over him. But
Yeah.
this Yzerman's a real solid pickup, and especially if he's going to an established core, like in a couple years, I mean, you might see him on the top line, and just as long as the Islanders treat him, I think they kind of didn't treat Oliver Wahlstrom the best. I think Wahlstrom didn't really get the shot. Yzerman's going to get the shot that Wahlstrom didn't. Emery, I agree with Matt right here saying the Rangers got to steal with Emery. He was the guy I wanted. He gives the Rangers something that they needed, a skating, puck-moving D-man who's responsible in his own end. And no, Bob is making $10 million. So just in case if that's it.
I'm surprised that Nikolai Ehlers and Marty Necas haven't been traded. I mean, you heard their names for a while leading up to the draft and into the offseason, and they're still with their team. So those are just two guys that you should keep an eye on, because I mean, I did say that, really the NHL offseason really dies down pretty quickly after the 4th of July. But, I mean, I thought for sure they were going to be traded. And I guess they still could, but I'm less sure now, especially on Necas's half. I mean, on Necas, I thought he would have been gone already, for sure.
Yeah, I think Necas was somebody that definitely could have that you would have seen gone to Buffalo, and that's probably a guy that's still going to target. I wonder now with the departures of a lot of people that now maybe they're going to convince him to stay and say that your role has changed. We're going to feature you a little bit more. Maybe that could be something, because Carolina just can't lose everybody, right?
Yeah. Yep. Saying we have 3. So the thing with that is, though, Wahlstrom, Lou, as you all know, Lou doesn't really divulge anything. But after the draft, he spoke, and he was pretty open. And he actually said that, they would look to get Wahlstrom to find him a new start, trade him elsewhere. But at the same time, he wasn't going to give him away. So I'm not really counting Wahlstrom as an RFA. I highly doubt the Islanders sign him. I would say that his rights are traded at some point. And same thing with Ishikov. I mean, he's an RFA, but I don't think it's a lock that the Islanders sign him. Simon Holmstrom, on the other hand, he's the guy they're definitely going to sign. So they only have $900,000 in cap space. So Holmstrom is probably at that amount, maybe $1 million, maybe 1.1, 1.2. So they are still going to have to move somebody. But they could probably sign Wahlstrom and then just simply get under the cap by waiving Hudson Fasching at some point. So I'm not as sure anymore. Like before the draft, I thought for sure Pajot, someone was getting traded. I'm not sure that's the case anymore. To further that,
Yeah.
John Radigan. So I'm gonna say Wahlstrom. Absolutely not. I think he's traded. Pajot, again, before the draft, I would have said he's gone. Now I'm gonna say he's gonna be on the team. That's just my feeling. Mr. Jameson saying likely gone. I respect that opinion, but I'm just basing on saying him staying is that we're just at the point of the off season where not much happens, and I don't know. Lou hasn't been someone that's made a trade in late July or August, or even September. So I think if he was going to move Pajot, I think it would have been before the draft when he had that extra second overall pick to move. Now that it's passed, I say that Pajot's staying.
Ralph is asking, will Ottawa trade Brady Shea if the season goes off the rails by the trade deadline? I would have to say no. Brady Shea's contract is more of an off-season type of contract that can be moved. It's going to be very tough moving that deal.
You
He's
just you just said Brady. You just said Brady Shea
Brady
twice.
Shea,
It's Brady
Brady
Kachuk.
All right. All right. Will Ottawa trade
Um,
Brady Kachuk if the season goes off the rails?
No. What I can see happening is if Ottawa misses the playoffs once again, I think you might see Brady Kachuk pull. I think you might see Brady Kachuk do what his brother Matt did, and I think he might get tired of not playing in the playoffs and say, "Hey, I want out," and get his way out of Ottawa and get himself into an American market on a team that's going to be in the playoffs. So that's my guess, is that if things go really poorly in Ottawa this year, he's moved in the next off season. Because I mean, think about it. He's obviously ecstatic for his brother. You saw it when Matt won the cup. But deep down, he wants to be experiencing the same thing that Matt is, which is winning and playing playoff hockey. I don't. I think eventually he's gonna say enough of this.
Staters the Bible. Sorry, go ahead.
So Wicked, I just said before, and I guess this is me just being cynical after, kind of seeing years of how Lou operates. No, I don't think he gets traded again. They have 900,000 cap space. Simon Holmstrom's he's not gonna break the bank. I think Lou could. I mean, look, Lou got Kyle McLean at league minimum for 3 years. I think Simon Holmstrom he'll probably have to get for $1 million, maybe a tad over. In which case they have 900,000 available. They can get under the cap probably by waiving Hudson Fasching. That's my guess. I don't think he trades anybody off the roster. Now, if he re-signs Ishikov too, well then at that point, waiving Fasching won't be enough for both of them. But right now, I'm gonna say that he doesn't trade anybody.
Stater Survival was asking, when Vegas chose Connolly, what was going through your mind when the Islanders were up next? Were you freaking out that Yzerman was still on the board, or a trade, Anthony?
No, I wasn't freaking out. I mentioned this kind of when I had the credentials for the Stadium Series game. When you're in the press box, when the Rangers or the Islanders scored, there's not only there's no reaction from me, but there's no reaction from anyone. You wouldn't be able to tell who I was a fan of when I was there. Same thing at the draft. When it was the Isles' turn to pick, and Yzerman was still on the board, I was stoic as I could be. I mean, now granted, deep down, I was saying to myself, like, pick Yzerman, baby. This is big. But on the outside, totally zen like.
Well, by the way, I have the receipts from the group chat. He was definitely excited. He was zen like on the outside, as Anthony just said.
Yeah.
Yeah, we were watching it, and every time that there was another name being called, we're all texting each other. And I looked over at my friend John, who runs all things Islanders, and I'm just going, they're going to get Cole Yzerman. And I mean, this is a kid that could have been drafted in the top 5, and they dropped all the way to 20. They're getting that. That is great value that they got right there, and the Islanders could certainly use a guy that can put the puck in the net the way he can. We're going to go about 5 more minutes, guys.
Mr. Jamspan, I don't know if I've seen you before prior to this, so welcome to the show. But I would like to say I agree, but just based on previous Lou track record, I feel like if he was going to make a big move, it would have been before the draft. I don't see him moving anybody now. I could be wrong, and I will gladly eat crow if he moves past Joe. I invite you to come back on a show every Wednesday. Hope you're a regular now. And you can say I was wrong, but I don't at this point. I don't think he's gonna move anybody. I think I think, like I said, I think he can re-sign Holmstrom and be cap compliant by just waiving a guy like Hudson Fasching. I don't know if he's going to make that big move anymore, but we'll see.
David's asking this one. What were your thoughts on Anaheim picking Beckett Seneca and that reaction?
I mean, me and everybody else on the draft floor and even the crowd caught that. Like when Anaheim, when they announced that pick, everyone was like, "What?" Like it was one of those moments that was just shocking. The only moment that actually rivaled that in terms of shock and awe, and again, Mark, you weren't in the building for day 2, but on day 2, when the horn went off and Bill Daly said there was a trade to announce and said that the Tampa Bay Lightning have traded Mikhail Sergachev to Utah, everyone in that building like gasped. No one saw that coming, but but that Duck selection was similar to it. It was certainly, I was shocked, and as was everybody else.
Especially Beckett Seneca. It was one of those things that was a complete shock. And I heard that that like he didn't even interview with them. Is that right?
I don't know. I didn't hear that.
Yeah, but he was absolutely floored. And hey, look, that's a great reaction. If he was so surprised, obviously a humble kid, and you gotta love what you saw right there. To answer Wicked on this one, I was rooting for Cole Boudouin forgot the other name. Dean Letourneau. There we go. Because those were who I was looking at. And once they were off the board, it didn't even matter. But like you said, there's plenty of other good names that were out there. Chris T was asking Anthony, why do you think Yzerman cleared $4 million of cap after the Tarasenko deal by trading Fabry to the Ducks when he still has $20 million in cap space?
So, after that trade of Wallman, the next day, Elliot Friedman was on NHL Radio, and I was listening to it. And he said that, he thought Steve Yzerman was up to something big, and that, he had mentioned that Stamkos kind of was curious about the Red Wings when he almost became a free agent before he ended up re-signing with Tampa Bay years ago. So he was kind of speculating that we're in on that. Obviously, that didn't happen. So now that like all the top free agents are gone and there's really nobody left, a little bit of a head scratcher. I don't know what else he could do at this point. I mean, maybe trade for Natchez or somebody, but I don't know. I believe that maybe he was, gearing up, thinking that maybe he could take a run at Stamkos, and that's what it was for. But I guess now at this point we'll never know. With that said, though, Chris, yes, they have $20 million in cap space, but they have to re-sign Moritz Seider and Mason Raymond, and Moritz Seider is probably going to come in at at least $8 million, and then Raymond is probably going to come in, I would say, around $7 million. So that's $15 million right there. So I think it could have also been making room for them, knowing that's going to take up a chunk of money, but we'll see.
Well, guys, we're going to start up the music right now. Call it an early night.
Hold on. Slow up. I was saving this for the end because everybody loves a good story and chuckle on Mark's behalf of a good Marc messed up moment. But so we all know that we got stuck in Vegas because our flight was canceled. We were outside the Encore getting ready to pick up our bags to take us to the airport when Mark's friend John got a notification saying our flight was canceled. 2 minutes later, Mark Williams got a notification on his phone that JetBlue rebooked us for a flight at 11:19 p.m. Long story short, we got to the airport that night to get ready for our flight. And we get there, we go to check in at the computer screen, and it wouldn't let us. So we thought that was weird. We go to the attendant. She takes our licenses, and she says, "Gentlemen, your flight isn't for tonight, June 30th. It's 11:14 on July 1st." Marc nearly passed out. I was just laughing my ass off just because in disbelief. So, story goes, when Marc got that text message saying our flight was at 11:14, he looked at his phone, like he saw it, and he looked at it numerous times later in the day, just checking the status of the flight, and never noticed that it said July 1st.
And we kept looking up.
I will say,
yeah. We kept looking up.
Say, like, yeah, because we were still tracking the wrong flight. Like, now, in my defense and his friend John, like, Marc booked the trip, so I didn't get any notifications on my phone. So, like, when he first got the notification, like, he did one of these. Like, he would show us, and, like, I look at it from a distance, so, like, I'm not seeing it up close. But Mark Williams was looking at it all day and never noticed that it was for 11:15 on July 1st.
Well, unfortunately, Dave is right about this one, where it's death taxes and me having flight troubles involving Vegas, because 2 years ago it took 20 hours of flight delays for me to get out there. This year there was a 1-day flight delay. I'm still kind of griping about it myself and grimacing, because it was just rough. And yeah, as you said, and look, I can't even duplicate the look on my face, the absolute despair that went through, knowing that not only wasn't getting home. Actually, that was number one. I wanted to get home. I wanted to see my fiance, but also we were going to lose the free agent stream. We were going to be in the air for that. So we were.
Now, my question to you, Marc, is: Did you not look at the date at all, or how that actually come through? You didn't realize
it was kind of like a take it for granted, I guess, type of thing. I figured, well, they cancel this flight, they'll put us on the next one. But still, I mean, seeing July 1st, it's just one of those things. It's, yeah, well, I seem to have those issues. But it's one of those. It's just one of those things. I kind of thought it was going to happen. But they said July 1st. Like you're gonna strand people for 2 days. Like it's just no. Oh, it was rough enough. And I'm glad that it's over and I am home. And that's what is all that needs to be. Yeah. Well, we were all in shock. We were all in shock. Anthony, one quick question from Ralph right here. Who is winning the Metro? Gut reaction right now.
That's tough, because at this point, I don't think you could say the Hurricanes. I don't think you could. I mean, maybe the Rangers by default, just because they won last year and they didn't lose anybody and they gained Riley Smith. So yeah. Well, I suppose I'll say Rangers, but we'll see.
I'm ready to go with the Rangers, and then just that'll be it, and the Pens will be a surprise. All right. Well, the Pens. I'm sorry. I have no faith in the Penguins, and they're just on that dumpster fire going downhill. That ain't gonna happen. Devils then Washington. All right. Well, maybe. All right. Well, we'll see what Riley Smith is going to bring them. That'll be a different thing. They should have refunded our tickets. Well, they did, actually. They refunded our tickets, but I have to go call them because they didn't get all of it back. All right, guys. Thanks very much for joining us this week's episode of Big Apple Hockey. We are going to be streaming throughout the summer. We might take a week or two off in the middle of it and just put on some videos. But, guys, it is always a good time to be talking. And you know what? There's still more news to break. We'll find it. It'll be around. So, Anthony, last word.
Thank you to all the 340 plus of you that are watching. We really appreciate it. Have a safe and happy 4th of July tomorrow. Enjoy your barbecues, fireworks, whatever you enjoy doing, and we'll be back next Wednesday. And again, who knows if there's a breaking big trade between the New York teams, or even just like a massive one involving other teams. We'll always jump back on to cover that. But other than that, enjoy your day, and we'll see you on Wednesday.
Guys, take it easy.